The Vikings remain one of history's most fascinating and mysterious cultures. Join me, I'm delving into the top 15 most incredible facts about these strange people. Starting with number 15, the days of the week. So kicking off this list is a bit of a mythology that we all use on a daily basis, literally. Ever wonder where the names for the days of the week come from? Well, they all come from the gods themselves, with the back end of the week originating from Viking times. Wednesday means Woden's Day, which in Norse is Odin, the Old Norse equivalent to Mercury, who was the messenger of the gods and the Roman god of commerce, travel, and science. Woden, or Odin, was considered the chief god and leader of the wild hunt in Anglo-Saxon mythology, but the name directly translated means violently insane headship, not exactly the name of a loving and kind god. Woden is the ruler of Asgard, the home to the gods, and it's able to shift and change into different forms. Thursday was Thor's Day, named after the Norse god of thunder and lightning, and is the Old Norse equivalent to Jupiter. Thor is often depicted holding a giant hammer, and during the 10th and 11th centuries, when Christians tried to convert the Scandinavians, many wore emblems of Thor's hammer as a symbol of defiance against the new religion. Friday is associated with Freya, the wife of Woden and the Norse goddess of love, marriage, and fertility, who's equivalent to Venus, the Roman goddess of love. The name comes from Old English Frigsdag, meaning Frigg's Day, with Frigg being just another name for Freya. Number 14, the Mead Hall. Well, the Viking people loved their mead. It's a fact. Mead, an alcoholic beverage, was traditionally consumed during social gatherings and religious observances in mead halls, thus the name. These drinking halls served as royal residences from the 5th century to the early Middle Ages. The Mead Hall served as the king's home, where he and his family lived, and as the community's nerve center where important political decisions were made. The Mead Hall is Valhalla, a place in Asgard where the Einherjar, the warriors who died valiantly in battle, will aid Odin in Ragnarok, the ultimate fight against the giants. A typical mead hall was between 130 to 195 feet in length and about 30 to 50 feet across. There were also larger buildings. The Lofoten Islands landowner's longhouse measured about 260 feet in length. Rows of wooden posts were driven into the ground to outline the walls, and the spaces between them were stuffed with wattle fences and clay. In other cases, peat was used as an outside coating instead of clay, and the typical wall height was at least a man's height. The high four-gabled roof was supported by a grid of many joists and beams, which in turn were secured by wooden dowels and lashed with willow rods or straps. The traditional term for such buildings was hall, as in Valhalla, or sal, as in Uppsala. The name festal now describes this idea and tradition that's been carried over into the present day. For instance, the term may have been influenced by the German word for party hall, or festal, and these mead halls were created as part of the religion centering around the chief or king's throne. This hall, the most prestigious residence, played host to those events, and they were not just places of residence but also served as the heart of Viking social life. Feasts, political discussions, and religious ceremonies took place there. Number 13, the Longship. Few things in the world struck fear into the hearts of medieval people more than the sight of a fleet of Viking longships sailing up the coast of their homelands. Viking ships were iconic for their unique style, allowing them to both sail across the seas of northern Europe and row up the narrow rivers of the tributaries in a way that no other vessel could. The first thing to note about these ships is they had many different forms and functions. There were warships, merchant ships, and everyday ships. Some of them were multi-purpose, used for both raiding and trading. And the first longship appeared around the 9th century, during the period when the Vikings were actively raiding Europe. These ships were both light and strong because the planks and frames were cleaved, meaning they followed the fibers of the tree. This method made the planks very strong and allowed for a reduction in their size, making the boat lighter. Due to this, cleaved planks were an essential part of the Viking longship. The Vikings didn't use saws to make planks. Instead, they cut down trees and divided the trunk into smaller parts by repeatedly chopping them in half lengthways until left with separate planks. This meant that the planks were stronger and could be made smaller. Another crucial element of the Viking longship was the stem. This was the upright timber at the front of the vessel and probably the most iconic part of the ship. This streamlined hull tapered off into the narrow, elegant fore and aft stems. Step stems are where we see the clearest impact of the Viking Age on Scandinavian shipbuilding. These stems were made from a single piece of timber, carved to create the illusion that the planks all ran seamlessly into the top stem, creating a sleek look. The design of all these ships is pretty extreme, with a length-breadth ratio of over 6:1 and a shallow draft. These ships were incredibly unique for their time, but this made them perfect for raiding. The innovations in building techniques such as cleaving planks and the use of those overlapping boards influenced later ship designs in Northern Europe. The effectiveness of Viking longships set a new standard for naval architecture that would echo on through the ages. Number 12. Berserkers. Today, the word berserk describes anyone in an irrational, agitated state of mind. But like the days of the week, the word is much older than many realize and has a much cooler origin than you could possibly imagine. This word originates from the Viking Berserkers, fierce warriors known for battling in an uncontrollable, trance-like fury and allegedly performing seemingly impossible superhuman feats of strength. They would howl and growl like beasts, froth at the mouth, and launch attacks in fits of frenzy. In medieval Norse and Germanic history and folklore, berserkers were described as members of an unruly warrior gang that worshipped Odin, the supreme Norse deity. They were commissioned to royal and noble courts as bodyguards and shock troops, striking fear into all those who encountered them. Adding to their ferocity, they wore bear and wolf pelts when they fought, giving them the name Berserker, meaning bear coat in Old Norse. The earliest known reference to the Berserkers is found in the 9th century skaldic poem Hrafnsmal, which largely consists of a conversation between an unnamed Valkyrie and a raven discussing the life and martial deeds of King Harald Fairhair. While some researchers believe the Berserkers worked themselves into a self-induced hysteria before fighting, others maintain it was sorcery or the consumption of specific plants. Some more esoteric theories suggest supernatural beliefs such as spirit possession by animal spirits of wolves or bears, and according to some theorists, berserkers learned to cultivate the ability to allow animal spirits to take over their bodies during a fight. Some historians propose that by wearing the pelts, the warriors believed they could extract the power and strength from the animal. Dating as far back as the 9th century, berserker Norse warriors were said to be able to do things that normal humans couldn't. According to their ancient legends, berserkers were indestructible, immune to fire and the strike of a sword, continuing their rampage despite injury. In the year 1015, Jarl Eirikir Hakarnsson of Norway outlawed berserkers, and the medieval Icelandic law code Gragas sentencing berserker warriors to outlawry. By the 12th century, organized berserker war gangs had been completely disbanded, but it is quite clear that the concept of berserkers has left a lasting legacy. Number 11. Bluetooth. Have you ever wondered how the handy Bluetooth technology acquired its odd name? There are no teeth and nothing is blue. In Bluetooth truth, the name harkens back to Swedish telecommunication company Erikson's Viking heritage and the legend of Danish king Harald Blattland. According to lore, Blattland had an uncanny ability to bring people together in non-violent negotiations. His communication skills were so effective that he united Denmark and Norway as a single territory. The English translation of Blattland is, you guessed it, Bluetooth. Harald Blattland Gormson was a king of Denmark and Norway who lived during the 10th century AD. He was responsible for the unification of Denmark and later conquered Norway. Although most of his subjects were followers of paganism, Harald was favorably inclined towards Christianity. Today, Harald Blattland is a household name thanks to the wireless technology named after him. The logo for the Bluetooth technology is a combination of the Nordic runes Hagal and Bjarkan, the initials of Harald Blattland. This merging of runes reflects the technology's goal of bringing together different devices in a seamless way, much like Harald united different territories. They are part of the runic alphabet used to write various Germanic languages before the adoption of the Latin alphabet. The most well-known runic alphabet is the Elder Futhark, consisting of 24 runes, used from around the 2nd century to the 8th century. Runes weren't just a writing system, but they also held magical and ritual significance. They were often used in inscriptions on stones, weapons, and tools, and they were believed to possess inherent magical properties. Number 10. Onion soup. While Vikings at large weren't the warmongering warriors that we see on television, they still got into their fair share of scraps, which means serious needs for medicine. During the Viking Age, survival required both physical strength and innovative thinking. The harsh climates and frequent battles meant that resources, especially for medical care, were often scarce. One of the remarkable innovations Vikings developed was the use of onion soup in their medical practices, specifically for diagnosing the severity of abdominal wounds. Throughout the year, Vikings gathered crops and medicinal herbs, but during the cold season these supplies became scarce. The scarcity forced them to innovate ways to conserve their resources and ensure none were wasted. When warriors returned home with wounds from battle, it was up to the medicine women to diagnose and assess the severity of the injuries to determine if the person could be saved. In an innovative method, Viking healers would feed wounded warriors a strong, pungent onion soup. This simple but effective diagnostic tool had a critical role. It helped the healers determine whether a wounded warrior's stomach or bowels had been perforated. After the warrior consumed the onion soup, the healer would wait a few minutes and then sniff the wound. If the distinct smell of onions emanated from the wound, it indicated that the stomach wall or intestines had been perforated. This was because the scent of the onion could travel through the perforation and be detected outside the body. This method of using onion soup was really clever because it provided a clear and quick indication of an injury. A bad stomach wound would usually mean a septic infection, which without modern medical interventions would result in a world of hurt. By detecting the onion smell through the wound, healers could determine that the injury was beyond their ability to heal. Therefore, they would use their limited medicinal herbs and remedies on another warrior, better conserving their limited resources. More than warriors, Vikings were also farmers, and in the wintertime they had plenty of onions saved up. The onion soup method, when you think about it, it's actually pretty clever and cool, and it shows that while they were strong of body, these Nordic folk were also strong of mind. Number 9. Cats. While Vikings don't exactly have a reputation for being cuddly, their travel companions, cats, do. Animals are relatively commonplace in Viking stories, from Odin's ravens to the wolf Fenrir. Perhaps the most significant cats referenced in Old Norse tales are Freyja's cats. Freyja was the most renowned of the Norse goddesses, in charge of fertility, battle, and love. According to Nordic tales, Freyja frequently drove a chariot pulled by 2 giant gib cats, which were blue or gray in color. These felines were apparently a gift from Thor and were used to travel to the funeral of Baldur, Freyja's son. The cat was also Freyja's sacred animal, and some Vikings believed treating cats well would earn them favor from Freyja. Cats have a notable presence in Norse mythology and Scandinavian folklore. Other cats include Jormungandr, a mighty serpent who transforms himself into a cat in a story about the frost giants tricking Thor. Even Fenrir the wolf was said to be restrained by a chain with 6 magical properties, including the sound of a cat's footsteps. Scandinavian folktales also feature cats, such as a story about a cat who helps a poor man and eventually asks him to cut off its head. When the cat is decapitated, it turns into a beautiful princess who marries the man. Some experts believe Viking cats would also be given to brides for their wedding day as a symbol of love and a reference to Freyja. There are several theories about how domesticated cats found their way to Norway. All domesticated cats come from the same species, which originated in the Middle East. DNA evidence suggests that multiple cat migrations happened throughout the Middle Ages, helping felines spread around the world. The first migration took felines from the Middle East to Europe and Africa. The second migration began in Egypt, enabled by the introduction of boats. Cats on boats traveled throughout the world, including Scandinavia. In 2016, researchers sequenced the DNA of 209 felines, the remains of which have been found at various archaeological sites, dating from 2,700 years ago to 15,000 years ago. What they discovered was the cats expanded geographically in 2 waves. During the first wave, the feline critters traveled from the Middle East to the eastern Mediterranean, an area known for its fertile land. This finding supports the long-held belief that farmers in desperate need of rodent control encouraged the spread of cats. Number 8. Viking Metal. Heavy metal has long drawn parallels between the Old Norse people of the Middle Ages and life as a touring band. Since Led Zeppelin's Immigrant Song in 1970, Vikings have held a special fascination for so many of our favorite musicians. In the diverse landscape of heavy metal music, one genre stands out for its unique blend of historical narratives and mythical themes, and for being on this list, Viking Metal. This Viking Metal traces its origins to the late 1980s and early 90s, emerging as a subgenre within the broader spectrum of heavy metal music. The term Viking Metal was initially used to describe bands that incorporated themes of Norse mythology, Viking history, and Scandinavian culture into their music and imagery. Aggressive riffs, epic melodies, and traditional folk instruments all add to this appeal. But the Vikings' metal, thematic, and musical elements resonated with audiences beyond Scandinavia, leading to its global audience. Like the Vikings themselves, this music has conquered so many faraway lands. Bands from countries such as Germany, Finland, and the United States embraced the genre and expanded its auditory boundaries. Lyrical themes in Viking metal revolve around Norse mythology, historical events, and cultural motifs. These themes can range from tales of Viking raids and battles to reflections on Norse cosmology, honor codes, and the clash between old and new beliefs and Christianity. Another defining feature of Viking metal is the inclusion of folk instruments that harken back to Norse traditions. These may include flutes, hurdy-gurdies, fiddles, and traditional Nordic string instruments like the nyckelharpa. Folk instruments add a folkloric authenticity to this music, infusing it with melodies and timbres reminiscent of ancient Viking culture. The band Tyr from the Faroe Islands exemplifies this approach, blending heavy metal with Faroese folk music to create a sound that is both unique and deeply rooted in their culture. But without a doubt, the coolest aspect of Viking metal is it's also inspired a renewed interest in Norse mythology and history. The genre's lyrical content often draws from ancient sagas, eddas, and historical texts, prompting fans to explore these sources further. Moving on to number 7, Ullr. Among the pantheon of Norse gods, Ullr occupies a somewhat enigmatic yet intriguing position. While not as widely celebrated as figures like Odin and Thor, Ullr's significance is deeply rooted in the cultural and practical aspects of life in ancient Scandinavia. His story serves as a bridge between the pre-Viking Age beliefs and what we recognize today as Norse mythology. Ullr's lineage is a topic of scholarly debate. It's widely accepted that his mother is Sif, the goddess associated with fertility and grain, while Thor is mentioned as his stepfather. However, Ullr's biological father remains unnamed in the texts. Despite this ambiguity, though, it's clearly associated with the Aesir, one of the primary tribes of gods in Norse mythology. He's also noted as the half-brother of Thruda, Thor and Sif's daughter, who depicted as either a goddess or a Valkyrie. Now, details about Ullr's early life are scarce, but it's evident that he grew up among the gods of Asgard and earned considerable respect for his exceptional skills in archery and skiing. In a land where snow blanketed the landscape for a significant part of the year, skiing was not merely a leisurely activity but an essential means of transportation and survival. Ullr's expertise in skiing, ensuring safe travel over icy and treacherous terrains, made him a crucial deity for the Norse people. While skiing itself is an ancient practice with widespread origins, Ullr's association with this winter sport is deeply embedded in Norse culture and religious practices. The name Yadalir, which translates to yew-dales, is significant in this context. The yew tree was essential for crafting bows, and this connection highlights Ullr's prowess in archery. The link between archery and skiing is symbolic of Ullr's skill set, as both activities require precision, balance, and an intimate understanding of the environment. Number 6. Hnefatafl. For centuries, we've unearthed large quantities of gaming material from Viking boat burials. Dating from the 7th to the 11th centuries, most of these artifacts consist of checker-like pieces constructed from glass, whalebone, or amber. These pieces range from ordinary discs to ornate figurines, and are usually uniform in shape and size, save for one prominent king piece, known as the hnefi. Experts will tell you that the game was much more than a frivolous way to kill time between raids. Its place among the burial sites holds a key to a much deeper meaning. Hnefatafl was a strategy game played on a checkered wooden board similar in appearance to a modern chessboard. The game is notable for its asymmetric rules, where one player controls the defending side, including the king, while the other player controls the attacking side. The objective of the defending player is to move the king from the center of the board to one of the corner squares, while the attacking player aims to capture the king by surrounding him on all four sides. The widespread presence of this game in Viking burials signifies its deep cultural meaning. Archaeologists have discovered boards and pieces placed on or near the deceased, indicating that the game was seen as a desirable aspect of the afterlife. In some cases, gaming pieces were even found on top of graves, suggesting a ritualistic significance. Martin Rundqvist and Howard Williams, who excavated 23 amber game pieces in southern Sweden in 2005, speculated that Vikings may have viewed the placement of these items as a means of assisting the deceased's transformation into the afterlife. Stories often use the game as a metaphor for military strategy and life's changes, making it an accessible and resonant symbol for contemporary audiences. Number 5. Beowulf. Perhaps the oldest surviving long poem in Old English, Beowulf, is widely regarded as perhaps one of the most important works of Old English literature. While the date of the poem's composition is still debated, it's certain that the physical manuscript was produced sometime between 975 and 1025 AD. The author was an anonymous poet, possibly of Anglo-Saxon descent, who is now referred to as the Beowulf poet. The poem itself doesn't have a specific title, and it's named after its protagonist. The full poem survives in only one manuscript, known as the Neaul Codex, which was badly damaged in a fire at Ashburnham House in London in 1731. Fortunately, the manuscript wasn't destroyed and it's currently housed in the British Library. It is the only original in existence. If you don't already know, Beowulf is set in Scandinavia, and it follows the adventures of its eponymous hero Beowulf, a Geatish warrior from an area now part of modern Sweden. The narrative begins with Beowulf answering a call for help from the Danish king Hrothgar, whose great hall, Heorot, is being terrorized by a monstrous creature named Grendel. Grendel, tormented by the sounds of joy he cannot partake in, attacks Heorot and his men as they sleep in the Mead Hall. In response, the hall is abandoned and a call for aid is sent out. Beowulf arrives to confront Grendel, engaging the monster in a fierce battle without any weapons. Though Beowulf's men attempt to assist him, the swords cannot pierce Grendel's skin. But with any good piece of folklore, you gotta wonder how much of it is based in reality. The events of Beowulf take place over much of the 6th century, a period when the Anglo-Saxons were beginning to settle what would become England and still maintain close ties to their Germanic kin. As such, the poem may have been brought to England by someone of Geatish origin. Some scholars suggest the poem was first composed in the 7th century in East Anglia, given the similarities between the Sutton Hoo ship burial and those described in the poem. Despite its purpose as entertainment, Beowulf intertwines legend with real-world events. While Beowulf himself is fictional, many supporting characters and events appear in Scandinavian sources, with archaeological evidence lending credibility to these accounts. One example is the excavation of Idgils Mound in Sweden in 1874, which revealed the remains of a powerful man buried around 575 AD on a bear skin with 2 dogs and rich grave offerings, consistent with the description of a wealthy man's burial in Old Norse sources. This discovery has led some to speculate that the poem may reflect actual historical events and figures. Number 4. The Valkyrie. The Valkyries of Norse mythology stand as some of the most captivating, powerful, and coolest figures in all of ancient lore. Revered for their prestige and formidable presence, they were among the few groups of warrior women endowed with significant influence over both the mortal and divine realms. Clad in iron chainmail adorned with swan feathers and helmets, and wielding spears with unflinching courage, the Valkyries descended from the heavens upon their ethereal horses, their guttural cries resonating across the battlefield. Their mere presence was enough to instill both awe and terror among mortal soldiers. They're so amazing that the images have stayed throughout the culture to this day. Well, despite their fearsome appearance, the Valkyries didn't participate directly in the battles of mortals. Their role was to determine the fate of fallen warriors, choosing who among the fallen was worthy to ascend to Valhalla, Odin's Grand Hall. Valhalla, the Hall of the Slain, is a place where warriors prepare for Ragnarok, the prophesied end of the world, training continuously to defend against the forces of chaos led by Loki. Conversely, the Fields of Freya offer a more peaceful afterlife, where the chosen warriors lead a simple and pleasant existence. Among the Valkyries, Brunhild is probably the most famous. Her story is prominently featured in the Volsunga Saga. In these accounts, Brunhild is depicted as extraordinarily strong and powerful. However, her narrative also involves significant elements of enchantment and tragedy. In the Volsunga saga, Brunhild is placed under a spell by Odin for disobeying him in battle. She's imprisoned within a ring of fire and falls into a deep sleep, only to be awakened by Sigurd, a warrior of noble lineage. The tale of Brunhild highlights the complex nature of the Valkyries. While they are associated with Odin and have the ability to influence the outcomes of battles, their actions and choices are also subject to personal emotions such as jealousy and revenge. The status of the Valkyries evolved over time. In later literary and historical records, their role diminishes from that of divine warrior maidens to that of mortal shield maidens, women who fought alongside men in battle. This transition suggests that the Valkyries may have been inspired by real historical female warriors, whose bravery and strength were celebrated in oral traditions and eventually became woven into the mythological narratives recorded in the sagas of the Icelanders and other sources. Number 3. Leif Erikson and the Americas. The common belief that Christopher Columbus was the first European to reach the Americas is a misconception that overlooks the earlier voyages of Norse explorers. Nearly 500 years before Columbus set sail in 1492, a group of intrepid Vikings ventured across the Atlantic, marking their presence in North America. Among these early explorers, Leif Erikson stands out as a pioneering figure who, according to Norse sagas, reached the shores of what is now Canada. Leif Erikson was born around 970 AD in Iceland, the son of Eric the Red, known for his colonization of Greenland. Leif's family included his siblings Freydis, Thorstein, and Thorvald. Raised in Greenland, Leif's life was characterized by both exploration and leadership. Unlike his father and grandfather, Leif was not banished, but sought adventure beyond his homeland. He was married to Thorgunna, with whom he had at least 2 sons, Thorgils and Thorkel. Leif's journey to the New World was driven by a combination of curiosity and opportunism. According to the saga of Eric the Red, Leif's voyage to North America was an unintended detour. After converting to Christianity in Norway, he returned to Greenland but sailed off course. Conversely, the saga of the Greenlanders presents a different narrative. It suggests that Leif had heard about a mysterious land to the west from an Icelandic trader who had previously glimpsed but not landed on the continent. Motivated by this account, Leif acquired the trader's ship, assembled a crew of 35 men, and retraced the route westward. Upon crossing the Atlantic, Leif and his crew encountered a rugged, barren landscape they named Helluland, or Stone Slab Land, which is believed to correspond to modern-day Baffin Island. Their most significant landing was on the northern tip of Newfoundland, where they established a base camp and named the region Vinland, or Wineland, due to its abundance of wild grapes and favorable conditions. Leif's expedition spent a winter in Vinland, benefiting from the region's milder weather compared to Greenland. They explored the area's lush meadows, rivers teeming with salmon, and the prolific grapevines. Upon returning to Greenland with timber and grapes, Leif Erikson and his crew made a substantial impact. Although Leif himself didn't return to North America, his exploration, however, was not the end of Norse incursions into the New World. Vikings continued to visit Vinland for at least a decade after Eriksson's voyage. Archaeological evidence, too, has validated the saga's accounts of Norse exploration. In 1960, Norwegian explorer Helge Ingstad and his wife Anne discovered remnants of a Norse settlement on the northern tip of Newfoundland. This site, which dates back to around AD 1000, includes artifacts and structures indicative of Norse origins, and it's been designated a UNESCO World Heritage Site. Number 2. Drengr. Bushido, chivalry, Drengr. This ethical code, followed by the esteemed Viking warriors known as the Drengrs, offers fascinating glimpses into the moral and cultural values that underpin Viking life. While the Drengr code is primarily preserved through sagas and oral traditions, it encapsulates core principles such as bravery, loyalty, honor, and generosity, which were integral to the Viking identity and societal structure. The term Drengr was used by the Vikings to denote a warrior of exceptional honor and bravery. Drengr were held in high regard within Viking communities, embodying the virtues that were crucial to their culture and social ethos. The Drengr Code, though not extensively documented, is known primarily through Old Norse literature and sagas written in the 13th and 14th centuries. These texts, including the Saga of the Ynglinks, the Saga of the Poets, and the Saga of the Volsungs, provide a valuable insight into ethical standards that govern their behavior. Loyalty was a cornerstone of the Drengr Code. Drengrs were expected to remain steadfast in their allegiance to family, friends, and their community. This loyalty reinforced the social fabric, and it ensured moral support and solidarity among Vikings. Honor was paramount in the Drengr Code, guiding actions and decisions based on the preservation of personal and communal dignity. The pursuit of honor was intertwined with the social expectations placed upon Drengrs and was essential for maintaining their status. Generosity and hospitality also played a critical role in the Drengr Code. Drengrs were expected to be open-handed and hospitable, reflecting the cultural value placed on communal bonds and societal cohesion. The Drengr Code significantly influenced Viking society, shaping their behavior and ethos of its members. It provided a moral framework that helped maintain order and stability within the community. This adherence to the code fostered a sense of identity and unity among the Vikings, who were judged based on their alignment with those values. Those who exemplified the Drengr Code were celebrated, while those who fell short were often marginalized. The Drengr Code reveals the depth of moral and ethical considerations that governed Viking life, offering a more nuanced view of their society beyond the stereotypical image of ruthless warriors. Number 1. Ragnarok. In the realm of Norse mythology, few tales are as grand and cataclysmic as that of Ragnarok. This apocalyptic saga unfolds as the ultimate end-of-the-world scenario, where the cosmos itself is tested in a final titanic clash between the forces of order and chaos. The harbinger of Ragnarok begins with an unprecedented harsh winter known as the Fimbulvetr. This relentless season, marked by unending snow and biting cold, sets the stage for the cosmic upheaval to come. The world will be plunged into chaos as this winter ravages the earth, signaling the approach of doom. The arrival of Ragnarok is further foretold by the crowing of 3 red roosters. Fjalar, the rooster of the giants, will announce the coming battle to his monstrous kin. A second giant, mythical rooster, will alert the spirits of the underworld, and the final rooster, Gullinkambi, perched in Valhalla, will sound the alarm for the gods themselves, marking the beginning of the end. As the signs of Ragnarok come to fruition, Loki, the trickster god bound to a cliff as a punishment for his treachery, will break free. He will lead a horde of giants and monsters on a ghostly ship constructed from the nails of those long gone. This ship, known as Naglfar, will ferry its strange cargo to the battlefield of Vigrid, where the final confrontation will ensue. Against them will stand the Aesir, the pantheon of gods led by Odin. The scene is set for an epic conflict involving legendary figures such as Fenrir the Wolf, the flame giant Surtur, and the monstrous hound Hati. Thor, the thunder god, will battle the Midgard serpent Jormungandr, only to perish from its venomous bite. Odin will confront Fenrir and meet a grim fate, while the fire giant Surtur's flames will engulf the earth, annihilating all life. Well, despite the devastation, Ragnarok is not the end, but a prelude to renewal. As the world sinks into the ocean, it will eventually resurface, cleansed and reborn. The cycle of destruction will give way to creation as the earth emerges anew from the watery depths. The gods who survive, Vali, Vidar, and the sons of Thor, will come together in Idavol, a sanctuary untouched by the apocalypse. Here they will rebuild and renew the world, while Balder and Hod, who had long passed, will return to life. Now, Ragnarok reflects humanity's fascination with the end of times and the promise of renewal. These myths often serve as metaphors for the natural cycles of change observed in the world, such as the rotations of day and night, the changing seasons, and the perpetual circle of life. Thanks for watching, everybody. I'll see you next time. Thank you to our channel members.